Call the meeting in order. It's 9 o'clock. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everybody's had a chance to look at the agenda. I've been asked to put action item number 7 for the forensic services contract up to number 1 to be ahead of number 1. So Sam, he's here now. He needs to get back to court, so get that done pronto. Is there any other changes or questions? Not, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda with the adjustment.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Moving on to approval of previous minutes, October 1st meeting. Everybody's had a chance to look at those, I hope, and is there any additions or corrections? No. If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Work group session minutes, October 8th. Is there any additions or corrections to those? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public comment. Now's your chance to come before the board and make a public comment. Is there anybody who would like to make a public comment? Seeing none. We'll go on to appointments. We're gonna do interviews here at 10 o'clock, so the closed session, we're gonna have between 9 and 10 action items. That's okay with everybody else?
Sounds good.
Okay, then we'll move on to consent agenda. There's 5 items on the consent agenda. Is there any questions about those? Number 2, I see was hired at step 2. Was that after the interviews, you felt step 2 was the appropriate step?
Correct.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion is made to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Moving on to action items. We'll do, consider approving Computer Forensic Science Incorporated Professional Technical Services Agreement. Carol and Sam, or just Sam, yep.
This is that project that I've been working on with Senators Klobuchar and Smith and the other county attorneys throughout the 3rd Judicial District. It's that funding, as you can see there, it's $1.5 million over 3 years, $500,000 a year. It's a flat fee contract for computer forensic services to provide computer examination, some training to law enforcement, as well as testifying and providing reports at trial. Frankly, it's not that hard to get, in some ways, to pull and extract a phone. It's explaining what you found. And these people are very good at it. We're experiencing, as you can imagine, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is overwhelmed with requests for these type of services. Sometimes I've got a couple of things that are in my office that are really serious, limited in scope, but very serious crimes that are at the 9-10 month backlog at this point, waiting for answers. Whereas when we send it to CFS, we get it back in 2 to 3 weeks. And then we have that additional services. The service has been very good through CFS when I've used those already privately or through my budget myself. CFS was done on the 7th of October and talked to our law enforcement, provided some what I call first responder training if something would happen with their device getting into the field, best way to recover devices, secure the evidence. And the response that I had with law enforcement was very, they liked it. They were very happy with the presentation, and they're very happy in the past, the services that were provided. And that service also includes when they extract the electronic evidence, they store it, and then they will disperse it out to defense counsel, and then back to my office as well. So it really takes our IT out of the picture when it comes to sensitive data, say like child pornography. And so it's a nice service that way as well. It is the funding commenced on Carol could jump in, March 9th is when the back date was March 9th. It'll go to March 9th of 2027. And I believe it's both myself and Carol's understanding monies that we've expended to CFS from March 9th, that we would be able to recover those through the grant, seek reimbursement from that. And I think that sum is approximately $50,000 right now. But that's the other benefit to this as well, as besides what's going forward, there is an ability, we believe, to recoup our understanding of the grant process, recoup some money that's already been spent to CFS.
So this,
Counties are involved with this?
I believe in the 3rd Judicial District, it's 11. There is some benefit to us in a sense that since this has taken a while, that Olmsted County has built their own lab. And then when you take Olmsted out of the picture, they're just a smaller pie to get portions of. But I will tell you is that they have the capacity. We have a case right now where someone's charged and there was 124 devices and 118 haven't been through yet, and we need to do our due diligence. And CFS, Lieutenant Garrett, at the meeting we had in the 7th, asked him, how do you want to pick it? Just send them to us. We'll go through them all. It's unlimited, so they'll take the stuff in. So it's going to be a great service to us. And not only to us, but the other counties that are willing to participate. Some counties may have a source, a lab, like Olmsted County that won't participate, but there are many county attorneys that just, we've been talking about this again for months. They just can't wait to get access to this. And it's one of those things where cooperatively we could do something where I individually couldn't have done it. And because I think we all recognize we have a problem, but how do we solve this problem? We tried it a lot of different ways. But luckily when persons, I think it was Olmsted and Winona County, maybe there was another county in the west side of the district in the 3rd, they met with Senator Klobuchar and Smith and they suggested this process. And it was a long process and I couldn't have been here without Carol's help. And it's going to pay off, I believe, in the end.
so this is a federal grant then?
Correct. Well, it's not a grant. What it is, it's what they used to call, I don't know if they call it congressionally directed spending. And it goes through the funnel that's used through the Department of Justice. They use sort of the Department of Justice as their grant process system is the funnel to get it to us. So there is, you know, checks on it, make sure that both Carol and I had to take grant training, what you can and can't do with it. It doesn't not exactly apply to what we're doing, but we had to go through that process because of that funnel that they use to get it to us or pipeline to get it to us. So there is some accountability to it. And luckily in this type of contract that, because of what their nature of the business, they can provide us like detailed financial stuff on it because that's what they do. And so, and they have a very good track record. They do it, I think it's the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department, the St. Paul Airport Police, Washington County, and you could just Google them. His name is Mark Lanterman. That's the person that has it. But his firm does stuff all over the country for the federal government. He teaches at federal judge training, Minnesota judge training. They just are very good at what they do.
And they have a good turnaround time?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for law enforcement and us, is we have a case right now that there were 3 people involved, and one of them, you know, we didn't really know what role that person played, and so the investigator, the sheriff's office, should we run that phone through? And I said, yeah, why not? We have the ability to do it, and we did it, and because of, we took the time and due diligence to do that, now we're able to link them up with a number of crimes in Wisconsin that they had no idea who did those crimes, but because of what was found on the phones, you're able to do that. And but I think it's an important thing to understand as well. And I made this a point when talking to Senators Smith's and Klobuchar's representatives. Especially as a prosecutor, my job is obviously you want to prosecute people, but it's to get it right. And if you use the example I've had from other county attorneys that someone is accused of violating a restraining order, and they said terrible, vile things, but if it's 30 minutes before they were served, it's not a crime. They have to be served with it. And so if that person's in jail, so if there's any concern about the innocent getting prosecuted, this is a good check on that to make sure you've did all your things that you can do to protect the innocent as well. It's different in some ways in DNA evidence. Years ago, we didn't know really what that would do for us, but now but there's certainly no doubt we know what this digital evidence can do for us. It's just whether we want to spend the money on it or not, and was different than the DNA. We didn't know, but this we know what it can do for us, and it's part of what we do and have to be doing. Mm-hmm. But it's expensive, and that's, as you know from my budget, that's expensive, and this is one way to deal with it for a while.
This is a 3-year contract?
It is. It's a 3-year contract. And what I will do is Houston County contracts with CFS. And the rest of the counties in the what I call the Minnesota Electronic Evidence Collaborative, they are third-party beneficiaries. It'd be like I have a car and we allow them to share it under certain terms and conditions, but we contract and then we're allowing them to use the services. And the reason we do it that way is I don't know if we would have got this amount and been awarded this had we not had the collaborative effort and the scope that money can be used for. And instead of just one little area of the state, this takes, a big swath of southern Minnesota.
So we're acting as the hub, basically? I mean, I don't know how to put that, probably not the right term, but
We're the
taking
fiscal
the lead
agent.
on this, so then other counties can share?
Yeah. What we'll do is we're the fiscal agent and
Okay.
they'll send us the bills. But it's really limited as far as what our responsibility would be, is that our law enforcement is just going to take this stuff up. If Rice counties or Winona counties, they want to participate, they'll talk to CFS, take the stuff back and forth, and that's what's going to happen on the 28th, and it'll also happen on the 7th, is CFS explain the process, how to get the stuff up to them. For example, like drive it up to us, that's preferred method. But if you have to FedEx it, don't send it on Thursday so it sits in a storage hub someplace for 2 days. We want it, get it up to us as soon as you can, so we have our hands on it. Because some devices, when they're not charged anymore, they get very hard to get into. Certain passcodes go into effect if they get shut off.
Good.
So the $48,301.41 per month max.
Yep.
How many counties are participating in this?
I believe, well, if you count Olmsted, I believe it's 11, but I don't know. I mean, they would have the ability, but I don't know if they would participate or not.
So if we're the fiscal agent, if one of those 11 counties, or 10, as the case may be, provides information to this organization that's going to do the investigating,
Yep.
you have to approve it as the fiscal agent?
No,
Who approves it as far as
the county attorney does.
so?
They're a county attorney.
Their county attorney.
So if one of these counties has got a great big case, they could use up the whole 48,000?
No, it's flat fee. Whether we use $48,000 of services or $8,000 of services or $480,000 of services, that's what it costs everybody.
So all 11 counties could be putting in requests, but
Yep.
that's the most that he could,
Yep.
this organization,
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly. He gets $500,000. Well, in this
No,
year, it's
I
going to
understand.
be a little bit less because it's prorated.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he or they, who approves the bills? You?
I suppose myself, and they'll come to me and then I would talk to Carol about it.
So we've got final approval as far as whether or not the bill's going to be paid.
I would guess, yes, that would be. I don't know if that's really good. I mean, I think it
Sort
would
of.
be, yes, because a part of that contract, we could, if there is some dispute about that, we would have the ability to terminate, yes, terminate the contract.
But the county doesn't have to pay it and then expect reimbursement. It's.
No,
I'll
no.
get paid up front.
No, they do the work, submit the bill to us. We take a look at the bill. If the bill is okay, then I think we have 35 days under statute to pay it.
Okay, thank you.
On pages 6 and 7, they've got the insurance coverages.
And
That's adequate?
yeah, I mean, yeah. And like yes. And then I do have them communicating with Lieutenant Garrett regarding, they haven't done already, but just for our due diligence, having background checks done on all their staff as well.
Okay.
That's getting done too.
You think perhaps one of the counties in our area might abuse this and use it more often than they should, or is that beyond discussion here?
And we've had that discussion internally, and CFS says we can handle it.
Okay.
That we have the resources to do it. And frankly, if instead of getting stuff back in 2 weeks, if we got it back in a month and a half, from what I'm seeing from where we normally send it, that would be, months and months ahead of time than what we normally have. Yeah.
And you don't foresee any bookkeeping headaches through finance or through your office?
For my office, I just assume that I'll get a bill, which we have been getting in the past as we've used their services, and we'll pay it, and it's all itemized out. I think Carol and I had talked about, like, on a quarterly basis, we may ask for some more detailed things. We talked about that regarding the reporting requirements.
2 last questions from me. Do they have the right to say, well, this isn't something that we do? I mean, the county sends them some information, say, well, this doesn't have any bearing on what we do.
Well, I'll answer that a couple ways. I think that would be a discussion that we would have with them, but I have not run into anything they can't do yet. Not getting into the weeds on this, but we did send up a case where somebody apparently was getting controlled substances and selling controlled substances and, like in barter system, like stuff that people had stolen, and they had a scanning device like you'll see someone at Walmart has, and CFS was able to get into it. They had to go buy a special cord, which would be under the contract, but they had to do that. They also have had an old DVR that they couldn't get into because it was just so old, they couldn't. And as far as, there are some issues perhaps with Apple stuff, but at this point, we haven't had any issues with it. But to answer your question fully, the reason we've sort of got down this road is because we've ran into stuff that the BCA or other people can't get into, and then they can get into within a week or two.
Now, last question from me.
Yeah.
As the fiscal agent, do we get compensation for the amount of time and whatnot that you have to, or your office has to provide as far as receiving the bills, taking care of the bills, sending them the payment to the organization, or is this gratis?
Well, I figure it depends how depends how you define gratis, because in this case, we already spent 50,000 or 48,000 some that we should be getting reimbursed.
Right.
And I had, again, if we didn't get this, I have those 118 devices that need to go someplace. And so this is a cost that is being taken out of my budget, which is going to be thousands of dollars. That'll be covered by this. I can't speak for Carol's time on this. That would be a better question for Carol. But I can't believe the money that we would save by having those devices go there is going to be anywhere near what our cost to the county to be the fiscal agent.
Sure. But we're doing this, the other counties don't have that expense invested, so they get it for nothing, and your office or Carol is, and granted, it's not very major, but we're still doing it for.
And I would say, yeah, I mean, it's how you want to view that. But I also will say is that we have a number of times went to Hennepin County, Ramsey County, Olmsted County, Holman, Wisconsin, La Crosse. They will for free take a look at our devices because we don't have the ability to do it here. And so it's, I understand what you're saying, but it's, I know either way, the county's going to pay something here. Because if you
It's a
don't,
team effort then. all right.
yeah. Otherwise, and then again, like I like to say, I know we have a problem and this was the best way to solve it.
So what you were getting at, Bob, was that we're not getting paid to be the fiscal agent.
No. That's right.
But I get what Sam was saying, that, you know,
It's saving us a lot of money.
other counties do stuff for us too that don't charge. And this is gonna be a benefit for other counties as well. Okay, any other questions? Is there a motion?
With things as they are, everything's going electronic, the backlog at BCA, this is an opportunity to expedite the prosecution and investigation of these devices. I move to approve this contract.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Sam, you, we're doing the JDC contract. I don't see, is Brian here, or
No, I don't see him.
would you have time to sit in on that, or?
Well, I have a meeting with the nurse from Gunderson at 10 o'clock.
Okay,
Okay,
well, I was just,
If you can get him over here, I'll stay.
we're going to approve the juvenile detention center contract, so,
And I'd made some changes that were requested,
yep,
and so it funnels through your authority instead of the sheriff's.
Okay.
That was the intent.
Okay.
In that initial language.
all right.
and that's about the only changes?
What?
Or was that the
That was
only
the
changes to
substantive
you?
changes was in the end, is that Brian's is involved in it, but the contracts come through your office or this
Come
body.
to us for approval.
Yeah, this body. And that's why if you take a look at that, the old, I think it was referenced the old Winona County Jail contracts.
Yep.
It's that basically that language mirrors that.
Yep.
Is that it goes to this body and then the sheriff is authorized to do what he does under the contract.
All right,
Okay?
thank you.
I thank you.
So, that's the next item, is the approving of the juvenile detention center contract. Sorry. Is there any questions on that? People have had a chance to look at, and there's been some changes made, so.
Who's the contract with?
What's that?
Who's the contract with?
This is just a general contract. Yep.
Just to establish the form for making a contract with
Right.
individual county. It's just a form.
Yep, in the future, like if a county wants to do a contract, he'll come before us and we'll approve it or just, or not approve it, whichever.
Looks like the changes were made that we wanted. So
Yep.
with that being said, I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
Okay. Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right.
Okay.
Consider approving, number two is consider approving purchase of Canon Image Runner Advanced 3930 scanner, a copier, accepting quote from Loeffler. Mary. She's not here. Well, we'll put her at the bottom of the list then.
I guess
Or
I can,
you can.
I can go through it. It's actually a copier to replace a multifunction printer that they have down there that they can't get cartridges for anymore. And this is being paid for out of the Recorder's Technical Equipment Fund,
Yep.
which actually she has complete control over. So I guess I had said this could be on the consent agenda, that she was going to purchase it. You can act on it if you want, but
Okay.
you don't, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's something that we need, correct?
Update
Yeah.
the equipment is,
Right.
and
Yeah,
this
it's
is
the
all-
compliance fund that the board has control over, the final control, but the recorder's technical equipment is under the recorder's discretion.
It's in the budget? It was in that
They're-
fund or?
It's being paid for out of that fund, yes.
Of 85.99.
94.
Right.
I'll make a motion to purchase the Canon advanced scanner copier.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Number three, consider approving renewal of the current TZD grant agreement with Minnesota Office of Public Safety. John. And Jordan.
Good morning.
Morning.
These are pretty impressive.
Yes, they are.
No more secrets.
No more whispering.
The TZD grant is something that we've participated in for quite some time. There's kind of two components to it. There's a law enforcement side that periodically has been done through our sheriff's office. This is more of an educational kind of component. So it is a renewal of the contract, but it's an increase. So I had Jordan here to kind of explain what some of that increase is going to.
Right. Our first year, we just wanted to get back into it because it'd been a few years since Public Health had done the TZD grant. So this year, we're going to focus Bree's time on education in the school districts and doing some impairments education and then seatbelt safety education in some school districts. And then she'll be able to attend the quarterly TZD meetings too with this budget. So that's why we're hoping you approve the grant renewal. She's going to take a bigger step into TZD this year.
Good.
You're on board with this, Bree?
And I,
Okay,
she's excited, so.
good.
She'll be a good representative for that, and it's towards 0 deaths. That's what
Yes.
counts, so.
She's got a meeting set with the Caledonia schools next week, already to do some education, so.
Good.
I think we participated with that TZD group even when we didn't have a grant.
Correct.
We felt that that was within our mission, and so we've had kind of a presence there for quite a while.
So this will allow her to do it with funding attached, so.
And the grant is 13,619.
Correct.
Going for education, and we already got a plan in place. I move to approve the renewal of the grant.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Crisis agreement.
Number 4, consider approving eHub, thank you. Consider approving eHub, a regional mobile crisis agreement. John?
Okay, this is kind of the end of a long saga. We've been before you before talking about changes that have been coming forth with what we do with mobile crisis. Mobile crisis has been around for a while, but in places that are further from kind of the hub of the original grant, which was for 10 counties in southeast Minnesota, as you got further away from Rochester, the access to mobile crisis got less and less. Over the last year plus, the directors in those counties have been working to kind of revamp this. And so now there are 3 programs, and actually the state of Minnesota has significantly increased the grant available to support this. So East Hub is the East Hub counties. It would be Goodhue, Wabasha, Winona, Houston, and Fillmore. And so our project is going to be, the fiscal host for it is Goodhue County, and we'll be working with Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center as our provider. It allows us to expand the staffing for that project pretty significantly to cover that area. We really determined that that was the bottom line, is having more people available to respond to different mental health crises. So we're excited about this. We're excited about the fact that the state has allocated a fair additional amount of funds. And this is kind of the next generation of that, and hoping to have much more robust mobile crisis response. It starts January, and it's a 2-year grant.
And the additional people that are gonna be online as far as providing these mobile crisis, they're gonna be located better as far as the
Correct.
southeast Minnesota, so that the travel distance to get to the crisis isn't as long.
Correct. Yeah, Bob, you have probably heard quite a bit about this, being a board member of Hiawatha.
Right.
So on page 1, there's this graph there of all the county breakdowns for 25 and 26. Like for Houston County, it's gonna be 10,815 in 2025, and 2026 is 21,907.
Correct. For whatever reason, this grant that the state is doing is front-end loaded. There's more money in the front than there is in the back end. We have also received additional adult mental health grant dollars. And so this is budgeted. It's not an increase to what we will need for our budget. It's something we planned for quite a while. This is just the agreement to put it in place. I anticipate that grant to kind of stabilize. They had some additional dollars in the first year that aren't in the second. And we've had an investment in mobile crisis all along. I think we're going to get a lot more value for that investment than we historically have.
But it's not front-end loaded, it's, 2025, for Houston County, it's 10,815.
The grant is front-end loaded. So the reason we have less outlay in the first year is there's more grant dollars in the first year, and it is less in the second year.
And yet we get less money in the first year and more money in the second year.
No,
That's what it
That's what it
says.
says here.
2025, it's 10,815, and 2026 is 21,907.
that's our cost.
Okay,
So that's not the.
So that has nothing to do with the grant.
Well, it's indirectly related to the grant because there's less grant dollars in the second year, so we have to have more of our dollars into
All right.
it. So the grant has more money in the first year than it does in the second year of this agreement. So the amounts that you see in that grid are each county's proportionate share that we've got to put up to make this program fly.
All right, I got it.
I do see that Goodhue County gets $8,000 some to administer it.
Correct.
This is different than the other one.
I'm not as familiar with what Sam had in front of you, but this will be a fair amount of administrative overhead to be the fiscal on this. It isn't just processing bills, it's also coordinating the reporting that is necessary to the state for the grant and a variety of different things like that. We're pretty glad that Goodhue's willing to do it.
This is a good thing as far as mental health in southeast Minnesota and the helping of people with having situations. And as such, I'll make a motion to approve the E-Hub Regional Mobile Crisis Agreement.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, number 5, consider approving foster care school transportation agreements. John.
So we did 3 of these a couple weeks ago, and the only one we hadn't done, because we hadn't received the paperwork back from, was the La Crescent Hoka School District. So this is the same thing. Essentially, it's an agreement that we've had historically. For quite a while, it was kind of what you'd call an evergreen agreement, where until one of the parties decides to change it, it remains in effect. Then there was a couple years where the school districts informed us we had to do it on an annual basis, and apparently it's changed now so that we can go back to an evergreen agreement. The bottom line for the agreement is it identifies our responsibilities and the school district's responsibilities as it relates to transportation to school for children who are in foster care. It's also required language in there that we, with the county human services as well as the school districts, work together to do what we can to keep children in their school district of residence, even though they may be placed. And so that's something we don't even need the agreement to do. We believe strongly in that and do everything we can to, within reason, to make that happen. So we talked about this a bit several weeks ago, and this is the same thing. It's just because we didn't have the La Crescent paperwork in yet.
And you're comfortable with the definitions of who's responsible for what?
Yeah, we worked hard on that. Essentially what it is we don't have a transportation system, but the school districts do. And so essentially what it does is the schools provide the transportation. It's just a matter of who pays for it. When the school district is moving children from home, wherever they may be within their district, they're responsible. If they're moving a child out of their district to their district, that's when we would have a financial responsibility. But we're not the ones who are trying to figure out how to transport that kid every day to school. So we were really, it was an opportunity for us to kind of clarify that, maximize the use of the transportation system the schools have, and, you know, strengthen our relationship with the schools. And it's also required for their Title I funding. And so we've had these agreements for quite some time. The biggest change was that they're now going to be kind of that evergreen agreement again, so that we don't have to keep revisiting them every year. Unless, of course, something changes.
Is there a maximum distance? I mean, you want the foster care child to be in their local school district with their family, friends, and what have you, but is there a maximum?
Well, it relates to the school districts in Houston County. If we've got a child placed out of the county, typically you're not going to be trying to transport them back to school. Sometimes it has to do with whether we have an available foster home in the boundaries of that school district. Sometimes there's specifics of the case where it's in the child's interest to be in a different school district. That's all done in conjunction with working with the schools and with our child protection team.
Well, I was just curious if we placed a child in foster care in Malware County, let's say,
Yeah.
from Spring Grove School District, do they have to be transported that far? But if they're put into, say, Fillmore County, just across, if the distance is the same as if they were in La Crescent versus Spring Grove, or Spring Grove versus Spring Valley, let's say,
Yeah.
would that still qualify then for the transportation, or because it's out of county, it
I
doesn't?
think, yeah, it doesn't relate to these agreements because it's just the 4 school districts in our county. We have children placed in a variety of different places, based on their treatment needs or different things like that. And sometimes you're scrambling for a bed too. So I think it's enough of an anomaly that they'd be out of the district or out of the county, that we'd work that out with the school district.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, do we have a motion to approve?
We've already approved 3 contracts with the school districts. This is the 4th, so I'll make a motion to approve it, the benefit of the children.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right,
All right, thank you very much.
thanks, John.
Thank you.
Number 6, consider approving a $19,000 EDA loan to Root River Market Cooperative in Houston at the 2024 set rate of 3.5% and a 10-year term for a new freezer for their grocery store. Allison.
Yeah, so the EDA knows that grocery stores are very important to small communities, and the Root River Market Cooperative has a very old freezer that they are putting a lot of money into repairing. So this will be great for business to get a new freezer. Instead of having to always have those costly repairs, it will be more energy efficient. Yeah, pretty straightforward project.
Yep, it's something that they need desperately. The old one is costing them like $5,000 every time it needs to be fixed, so. And, Root River Market is a people-owned cooperative market, and it's something that we need to keep in Houston.
Well, it doesn't provide new jobs, but it maintains the existing jobs.
Correct, it keeps the grocery store going. And the board felt that they would be qualified for the full amount of $19,000.
No argument.
This is the full amount for the freezer?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the $19,000 EDA loan.
I'll second that motion. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, number 8, discuss and possibly approve personnel policies handbook. Carol. And Ann? Okay.
Anyone find any changes?
2 questions.
Couple.
Okay.
You wanna go first, or can I?
Go ahead.
Page 14. Under 3.02, the last paragraph, is the supposed to be in there? Except in where such work is part of an agreement entered into by the county board.
Yeah,
It'd be just into by
I
the
think that
county
can be
board.
deleted.
Okay. Next page, 15. Under 304, social media, the second paragraph where it says personal social media account name or email names cannot not be tied to, that's a double negative.
If we're gonna point out,
Well, it's just a double negative. Never mind, I won't ask anymore.
well, no.
No, that's all.
In terms of policy, is there anything that you think should actually be different than what is in there?
I guess,
You know, it's a reflection of what we've either
Discussed.
been in writing or, past practice or a precedent has been set. It's fairly comprehensive. There are some tweaks that are going to need to be made, but, you know, we've been going a long time without this. It's hard to do orientations for new employees without a handbook.
Given the fact we need to do some tweaks, and to be honest with you, I want to get through this thing with a fine tooth comb because this is something we've been wanting to do for 15 years. I hate to approve it today and then say, oh, we need to amend it right away because we got to make some changes. And I'm having this looked at by a outside party just to somebody, because I'm not an expert in this, so just to get their input on this. And I would prefer to table it if that's okay.
That's why it was,
We've been waiting this long, what's another week or two? And then that way, Bob, they can make the changes in spelling and grammar or whatever you wanna call it. And
Sorry.
On the same note, we've got, department head meeting coming up. Is this something that maybe they should be taking a look at with us?
that's been sent out.
they've all received copies,
Have you heard much feedback or changes?
just from two people, not necessarily the content, but grammatical changes.
I know I'm on that meeting. I'm not sure who the other commissioners, maybe we can make sure that gets brought up at that meeting. So then we
believe
look
I'm
at
on
it after the
next
department
one,
head
too.
meeting.
This is an update of one that was quite old from, you say, a few years ago.
2008.
Yeah, so it's an update of a previous one, bringing it to the new standards or something.
It looks very well put together too, so.
Yeah, the basis came from the League of Minnesota Cities.
But it is a long read.
It is a long read, and that, I mean,
Uh-huh.
And it incorporates a lot of the other policies, you know, your drug and alcohol, your harassment, your safety policies. It includes the links in there to those, so it could be longer.
It could be.
It could be shorter.
I would go along with tabling it for at least a week or two, just to set a date for us to look at it again.
Well, I mean-
In November.
give us a couple more weeks to review it some more and get some more feedback. And like Bob said, we could talk about it at the department head meeting. You know, like a couple of things, you know, we've always had an ethical conduct policy, you know, ethics and that stuff. Is this kind of like code of conduct has been brought up to me that we need to have a code of conduct within the county to not bring embarrassment to the county. Some of this stuff, like I see here, maintain a positive image to pass constant public scrutiny, maintain a respectful attitude toward employees, other public officials, colleagues, and associates. I guess that would be something that would be along the lines of,
Right, the Code of Ethics and Conflict of Interest,
yeah.
Article 3. And then annually, basically each commissioner, department head, elected board.
Committee members.
Committee member need to sign.
Conflicts. That's for conflicts.
kind of
And
the
for
same.
ethics or what?
Yes.
Okay. But when for a commissioner, we take an oath, for our code, we still have to sign one here?
Yep.
That's required by state statute?
Tried by audit every year.
Audit, okay.
Yeah, we do it now.
Yeah. And each department head has to acknowledge that they understand that their employees don't have a conflict of interest and abide by this. If they don't, they're contacted by the state auditors to find out, well, how do you make sure that that's not doing that if you're not signing it and sending it in?
Well, I know we have to sign something, we have to make a filing every year too with the
Right,
state.
that's what I mean. The
Okay, that's what
department
you're
heads
referring
also
to?
have to
Okay.
do that. And they have to sign one that specifically says that they're aware of their employees' conflicts.
Okay.
I mean, I have Lynn sign one herself so that I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's optional. It's optional to have the employees do it. Many of the department heads do have their employees sign one on a annual basis.
So it's just optional.
That the employee does.
Right.
The department head still needs to say,
Okay,
you know, they
okay.
stand.
But with this personnel policies handbook, whether they sign one or not, they're still subject to the ethical,
Right.
you know, no conflict of interests and whatnot.
Think.
Is that a motion, Dewey, to table it?
Table, I think.
Well, we don't
consensus.
need a motion.
No,
just-
we just said possibly approve, so,
Table it, just be the boss.
What's that?
You can table it as
Yeah,
being the
Yeah,
boss.
let's table it.
You're the boss. You table it.
Yeah, I asked to table it, so,
Till November.
you know, like this, just go through a couple of things here, but, page 12, special considerations, where, situations can arise where a member of the county commission or board or a committee abstains voting because of a conflict of interest, but his or her abstention becomes a vote either for or against the matter because a majority is required to pass and reject the matter. This happens where you need 4/5.
Or a clear majority.
Or a clear majority. Split vote does not pass or reject. So the county attorney must be consulted, and the final vote should carry a public notice explaining what took place and how it was resolved. Do we understand all that?
I suppose it's like Robert's rules.
It's wishy-washy. I was always under the impression that if you abstain, it's an automatic no. This says it could be a no, it could be a yes.
We'll find out.
Makes
If you
it makes no
need-
sense.
If you need a 4/5 majority, see, so,
Also,
that's something
the
that-
next sentence says, or a vote that must have a majority.
right, yep. Something that needs to be consulted with Sam on.
I agree.
So, and another one is for like, well, I've asked this before, but there's going to be a link for how hiring processes are done for department heads.
Right, we have to,
Explain the point system and how it's calculated and all that. Right?
I believe that's in the hiring policy. We'll
Right, in
make
the-
sure it is.
Yep, in the hiring processes, yes.
We just have to figure out where we're going to put this so that those links work.
Right. Well, it'd be nice to know what that says, so everybody's got a good understanding of how that works.
And we can always bring, I mean, we can bring those in separately too, I would think. You know, there's other things too, like the employee safe and sick time policy. There's been more legislative changes that were made this year that we need to incorporate in our policy yet. I mean, so that's another example of something that needs to be tweaked and then, you know, brought
Brought in.
in for you to look at and approve.
Yeah, I just learned of that. There was some changes that were made to that policy, so. Yeah, we need to have that looked at.
Yeah. We'll put it on the agenda for, I guess, November, maybe
Is it November 4th is our next?
The first Tuesday in November.
November 4th, or,
November 3rd to be our first.
we'll just, I mean, we'll put it on as you and possible approval and
It'd be
see where
about
we're
the
at
fi- It's
then.
the 5th. It's at November 5th to be our next,
Election day.
Election day.
first one in November. So, okay,
Boy, that'll be,
busy day.
We're having a meeting on election day?
you just can't have them at night
That's right. Yep, that's fine.
during the day.
Okay,
Well, I appreciate all the work you've done so far on this, so.
Well, you know, Tess did the majority of the work.
Yep.
We're just trying to get it followed through.
you're done.
All right. Thank you.
You wanna take care of the bills before?
Yeah,
we
let's
go?
take care of the bills. Consider approving the payments. Any questions on those? Got the list here of all the payments to be made. Anything stick out to anybody that want any questions on?
Move to approve the payment of the bills.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
So
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, well, it's almost 9:55, so we're going to do interviews for Department Head of Environmental Services Director.
do we go out of session and
No.
close our regular meeting? to
No,
do
this
that?
is an open.
Open,
This is an
okay.
open meeting for interviews, yep.
Very good.
If we're ready, we can start.
Let's see here.
So our first candidate is Lydia, and I'm not going to try to say your last name. 'cause, you know, I'm not
Lydia
very good at
Gonitz.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay.
it. Okay. We have about 45 minutes that the commissioners are going to alternate asking questions. Here's your copy of them. So it's, feel free to ask questions anytime you wish. They'll be asking you the questions. They'll alternate and
Have a seat, you can, yep. Welcome.
Just relax.
And, yep.
No pressure.
We're just gonna, take turns in asking questions here, so we're gonna, each commissioner will ask a question, and then the next one will ask the next one, so.
Okay.
And, good to have you here, and I'm glad you applied, and we'll start with Dewey with the first question.
Very briefly, describe your education and work experience as it's related to this position, touching on the following points that are relevant, report writing, different things. Are you familiar with a job?
So my current position, I work for JB Holland Construction. I'm their environmental and safety coordinator. So I deal with OSHA regulations, have to stay pretty fluent with that. I do a lot of our incident investigations. I do all of our safety manual policies, so policy writing that way. I do our annual training every year, so I've been more accustomed to doing the public speaking part of it. And then I do weekly inspections for our job sites. Prior to that, I was a field worker, so I've got the background, also know what to look for that way. And I've always worked in customer service part-time, so I'm pretty well adapted to being a people person.
We're just taking time to evaluate, so. Question number 2, in your opinion, what is the role of Houston County Environmental Service Director? I assume that you've had a chance to look at the job description and what your role would be.
And it was a while ago that I got to look at it. But my understanding of it is just coordinating of the housekeeping staff and making sure we are following all rules and regulations applied to environmental safety.
You're also familiar that there will be zoning permits you'll have to approve and so on,
I was not, but
okay?
I'll ask the question in a second. I gotta finish writing.
I also, for JB Holland Construction, I also do, if there are certain counties that require certain zoning ordinances for construction work, I do all the paperwork for that. I've sat in public meetings, kind of like this, and
To do for permits and.
Yep,
Yep,
yep.
yep, yep. And
so I've
you
been on the other side of it, I guess.
got- Right. Yep, so you'll be, this one, you'll be on this side of it. So,
Right.
Yep.
Less pressure.
Question number 3. Describe your management style, including the interpersonal skills you believe are beneficial for a person in the environmental services position.
Well, I've worked with a lot of different groups of people. For the last 8 years, I've mainly worked with men, so you become a better people person. I would say a big thing for me is willing to do the work and show that you're committed, and being able to listen to your employees and help them through their struggles, and just know that they have somebody that has their back. I think that's a huge part in being a great leader. Just leading by example, I guess.
Yep. So your management style would be, you expect the same of what you are doing yourself. as
Yeah.
Lead by example.
Yep. I'm gonna hold everybody to the same standards that I hold myself, so.
Right, correct, all right. Commissioner Schultz.
Everybody ready? Number 4, the Environmental Service Department operates in a complex legal environment. How might you go about leading the team that is responsive to the public and to meet the compliance standards?
I think everybody should have like a pre-meeting before, talking in a large group, just so everybody's on the same page about, what's okay to say and what's not. And just being, don't use profanity and slang. I would, definitely get everybody together in a group and, kind of answer some of their questions before going into it, just so they're more prepared, so they're not as timid about the situation.
Meet with the staff to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
My turn?
Your turn. You get the
Conflicts-
long one.
Yeah, how come I get the long one? Gotta argue this one. Conflict or differences of opinion are inevitable. Please tell us about a time when you and your colleagues or members of the public had differing opinions and possibly even different objectives as how to approach and solve a problem. How did you create and share purpose and keep the other person engaged and motivated to overcome the gridlock and to succeed?
So I'm a huge believer in people want to know the why of why they're doing things. So a lot of times what I've seen in my line of work is disgruntlements come from just a lack of the other person seeing the behind the scenes of why they chose to do something a certain way. So I like to hear them out, be like, okay, why is it that you feel this way on this? And they may tell me something that I completely missed. And then I may tell them my side, something that they completely missed, you know, coming from different roles, speaking to each other. I think that's opened a lot of doors in my experience. And just being able to explain your side of things in a calm manner, let the other person go first, and don't like disregard what they have to say. If you have a different thought, be willing to see it from their side and have a good conversation about it.
So it sounds like you're willing to listen to their side and
Oh, yeah.
evaluate, you explain your side and listen to their side.
Mm-hmm. And I think a big part of that, how to create a shared purpose and how to keep them engaged and motivated. You got to know your people. Like, if you can relate to them on a personal side, you can use that as leverage, you know, for them to understand and be more understanding of you.
Go ahead, Dewey.
Is everybody ready? Okay. Numbers, excuse me. In general, why is it important to build strong work relationships with external agencies? Provide practical examples of having done this in the past.
I would say that in the construction world that I've been in for quite a while, external agencies, you got to make your customers happy, and you don't want to burn bridges because you might need those people in the future. One example of this, we have, our guys are super great at finish work, and we have a certain contractor that's reached out to us many times, and they said, hey, this other contractor's falling behind. We need you guys to come in because we know you do good work. And it just makes people feel good about themselves when you get that kind of thought with another contractor.
Okay, number 7, provide a brief example of when you made an unpopular decision and were able to implement it knowing it was the right thing to do and was a takeaway from that. What was your takeaway from that experience?
Well, nobody likes the safety director, so I made a lot of
Very
things
unpopular.
that,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. One thing I did push for our office was to start doing employee incentives. We had a really old generation in the company that was like, nope, you were hired to do the job. That's what you're here to do. That's it. And I was more of that younger generation, a little bit mixed in between. And it's like, nope, we gotta, we have to validate these guys that are doing their job well to bring the other ones up. And I would say it was an unpopular opinion in the office, but then I started to see a lot more just employee retention. They just felt better about themselves. They started working harder, and it had a really great impact. So some unpopular from the office, but I wouldn't say from the field.
Okay.
Well, when you're sticking your neck out in front of the bosses, that's intimidating, so you were able to do that.
Yep, it was a struggle Took me a couple years.
Okay.
He's writing, so
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was waiting for you to get done writing.
I'm a slow writer, so.
I am too, but.
Okay.
Okay, number 8. Please describe a challenging initiative that you led or participated in that demonstrates your analytical and professional competency.
I can't say I've been in a initiative exactly. There's been events that I've participated in that that I was, for example, like our construction company, we have training every year, and we wanted to get the guys like more into. We discovered over the years from doing our advanced operator training that it wasn't teaching the guys to do particular tasks in the piece of equipment. It was just how to get them to care. And that was, we took a step back. We grouped everybody according to their skills, their downfalls, and we really pushed each single person in every group and to be better operators. And at the end of it, I mean, they came out being a lot better operators, and it wasn't anything to do with technical operating skills, but just, you know, how they were to the group or to the team as operators. And that showed to be a big difference this year.
I also looked at that, you kind of answered number 7 when you took the initiative to start the employee appreciation.
Yeah, those two
Yeah.
Put together.
Well, that's,
questions are kind of the same. Yeah.
Yep, but, thank you.
All right. Everybody good?
I'm good.
Good.
Number 9, describe what you believe will be significant challenges facing the Environmental Service Office over the next 5 years. And what are your thoughts regarding strategies or approaches for addressing this challenge?
I think the hardest part of everybody's job is people. And I think one of the first things is just being a younger person in a more director role. Sometimes it doesn't make everybody happy, but getting to know everybody, so like just being there, being personable, and offering help to ways to make their jobs easier and also my job, and have them understand, you know, the position I'm in and like backing me in that. And I'm a pretty quick learner, so I don't really see learning the ropes as a huge hurdle for me, but just a different environment, I think that would be different for me. Maybe a little different dress code than the construction world.
Can't argue that.
Ready?
Yep, me.
If you were to be offered this position, what would you expect to accomplish in your first 6 to 12 months on the job? And what might you accomplish after the initial first year?
I guess within the first 6 to 12 months, I would hope to have all the policies and procedures for this establishment, like, down pat by 6 months for sure. And then all the other processes starting to, take on like more detailed parts of the role and understand those, become familiar with different computer systems that are used. And then by the first year, I would try to bring up, if there was something that was a pitfall within the organization, I would try to overcome that.
Identify some of the issues that you see. Yep.
Yep.
So, next one is for commissioners, do you have any follow-up questions? I guess I have one. Being the environmental services director, you're gonna be in charge of the zoning, permitting processes, applications, as well as some solid waste work as far as our contracts and stuff like that. You have a good understanding of that, and you mentioned before in one of your answers that you've dealt with through your work, other counties with their application process, so you're gonna be on the other side of that in this role.
Right.
So do you feel you have the good understanding of what this role is?
I would think so, yeah. I would say more so a better understanding on the zoning side than the waste side.
Right?
Do you understand ordinances and stuff like that in our zoning laws?
I'm not gonna say that I know them like the back of my hand, but
Well, it's not a fair question.
Anybody else have any follow-up? Do you have a question that you'd like to ask us? Don't be shy.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll think of it after I leave, I'm sure.
I can relate to that.
Okay, well,
Are you gonna ask if you were hired
Got one
question?
more question there.
so if you were hired for this position, soon would you be available to start?
I would like to give my company at least a 2-week notice.
Yep, yep.
If not better, so,
Okay.
yep.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
nobody else has anything
Would be
else?
subject to a criminal history background check, that's okay.
I'm not a bad person.
No, I'm just, it's a question.
Normal procedure, right? If nobody has anything else, I thank you for coming and
Thank you.
All right, thanks for having me.
being down
keep
to
you
interview
posted.
us. I'm sure it was kind of a different one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a lot different than I'm used to.
Thank you.
So these final 5 things are our opinions, I guess, is that what we're doing here?
We could ask Carol or
When
Ann
she's
when
ready,
we're done
I
there.
think. Either Carol or.
Carol, Dewey had a question?
No, on these last five things here, the last page, you know, confidence and so on, these are our opinions and we circle.
That's your
a number-
scoring, right?
A scoring.
right.
This is the scoring. And this will be what we're determining. Okay, thank you.
We can contact Amelia, or did you want to take a break? Or should we-
Can we have a couple of minutes just to finish?
We'll just take a couple minutes to finish this out, yep.
We told her 10:30, so that.
Okay, that's fine.
That's good.
A little confused here on the scoring on this. Yes, director. There's no scoring numbers on that, or am I missing something? This one here,
On O's.
Which one?
this logical,
That's a continuation of first page.
continuation of the first
Yeah.
question?
Number 3,
Oh, okay.
okay? That's what I read it as. One of them things where the page dropped out, looks like.
Remember, your mics are on still. So your mics are on.
Do this one here then.
Which one?
This form. It's attached to this, I didn't see that.
Carol, good to go here.
I don't know if it's attached. I got copies of, maybe I was supposed to get these.
Thing we add up is
But
this.
there's a lady with a.
No, it'll all get,
That was,
it all gets added up.
Oh, is it laying on
I
my
mean,
desk?
you don't have to do that.
pre-interview
Little
Okay.
review
Right.
of what their application.
So they gave us another.
compilation.
Ended up with that on that pie.
Yeah.
You'll accumulate the rest of it.
So,
That's all we gotta do for her, right?
Yep.
This one, we don't- No, what?
OYIA.
She had hopefully I did
Got my coffee mug.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Truck yet.
You could run down, but
Falling asleep, you have to poke me.
might be right with you. We're gonna have to take a potty break here within an hour, so.
My caffeine in the
to get along with it.
Ready?
Switching. All right, good enough for a while. That'll help me for a little while.
Quiet so far, it's only Tuesday.
Yeah.
Pretty wall-to-wall people.
Say they sold 9 or something. Wow. That's cranking up.
Carol, two sets of numbers or two sets of scoring? One for the questions that we asked and then one,
I mean, they'll all get totaled in the end, so just total those, the last one on that line.
the ones for the questions 1 through 10, and then the other section, total both
They'll
of
all
them.
get added together.
Okay.
10:30. Good morning, Amelia.
Morning.
Yeah, they'll just start right out. Okay.
We're all gonna take turns, every other question we're gonna ask to you, so. We'll start with,
Get this started.
yep, welcome, thank you.
Number one is very briefly describe your education and work experience as related to this position, touching on following points that may be relevant. And I have a list of different things, working in the public, presentations, report writing, other things.
Okay,
So,
all right. Well, I'll just get started. So obviously I've sat in front of you guys for a number of years now. But my background prior to coming here was in fisheries, or I worked at a number of different facilities for actually 3 area agencies. And those all, it was kind of on the opposite side of what we are now. Instead of being a regulator, it was managing permits and maintaining compliance at that point in time. And so on that side, we were monitoring data and our compliance parameters to make sure that we were maintaining the permits that we were given to complete the task of raising fish. Then when I came here and got started as the feedlot officer roughly 7 years ago, I got to see what goes on the statutory side, why we were asking for what we do, and all the reports and stuff that go into that. So I guess as far as like looking at each one of these individually, as far as report writing, the biggest one that we probably do is for our public hearings, our monthly public hearings. Every hearing has a staff report that goes along with it that outlines like the basics of the application. Then it outlines the findings, which are required by the ordinance, and the staff develops kind of a standard set of findings that the Planning Commission or the Board of Adjustment can run with, or they are always welcome to change that themselves, and kind of a proposal for moving forward, whether that be denial, approval, or approval with conditions. Other sort of report writing that we would get involved with, I guess not necessarily formal reports, but any sort of project you deal with, there is documentation that's required of that. Feedlots, we document what was discussed at the site, what maybe was seen, follow-up, and different things like that. With the septics, it's same thing. We maintain documentation of what we saw preliminarily when the system went in, and then any concerns maybe going forward. So it's not a formal report that might be multiple page documents, but it's maintaining information on a specific project. As far as policy and regulation enforcement in general, for policy and regulation enforcement, that is the a majority of what we do. Our office is out to, we're tasked with administering state programs such as shoreland, floodplain, wetlands, and the feedlot and septics. And then we also are tasked with enforcing our own local ordinance. And so as far as regulation and enforcement, that can take a place of preliminary discussions with people and just making them aware of the standards that they have to meet. It includes permit review then, and ensuring that what they've said does meet those standards. And then sometimes on the tail end, or checking on the tail end to make sure those were all followed. And then also dealing with complaint situations that may arise afterward, or just for other uses in general in a totally independent setting. Every day we work with the public, and it could be just answering basic questions if they stop by the office or call in. You get a number of inquiries every week via email, wondering what standards are, or check out this parcel, this is for sale, what can I do here? And so a very large part of this job is working with the public. Most of it's on a more of an educational standpoint, but there are times when you're dealing with like with public hearings, and people are maybe upset with things, and so you're dealing with them when they're more disgruntled as well. For developing and monitoring annual budgets, I have been involved from the beginning in just maintaining specifically the feedlot budget. I've been doing that since I started here. And then any other program that I started in, or that I was working with, we manage budgets for shoreland, septics, feedlots, and wetlands separate. And then obviously there is the whole overarching budget that you deal with as a department head. And I guess I should say more managing budgets is more time tracking and managing the actual day-to-day activities of it and how that's going to get billed out to that specific grant program. And then as a department head, we're looking at the overarching budget for the department and where we could maybe make efficiencies and where there's more need for certain programs, especially like training and items like that. So as far as policy drafting, one of the items that I know you guys have all been involved with too is that our ordinance doesn't always answer every question very well. And when we come across these situations where it's not just a single situation, we start to see it over and over, we want to make sure that we are maintaining consistent decision-making. And the way that a former department had really done a nice job of doing it was drafting policies, and then until we could do ordinance updates, we would follow that policy. And so when I have worked with different projects along the way here where we have issues, one has been, or not necessarily issues, but questions in how to handle things, like our accessory structures in residential areas and some of the standards regarding those. The ordinance just hasn't evolved to meet some of our more modern needs, and so we have a policy, and it also wasn't very clear to begin with. And so we have a policy on how we deal with that when it goes forward to the Planning Commission. And so there's other ones too for different projects as we saw fit. As far as public presentations, the biggest item there is probably just our public hearings every month. the staff, it's ultimately up to the landowner to come in and argue their point, or argue for whether or not they qualify for whatever they're asking for. But staff do get involved in preparing information for that and just doing their best to educate the planning commission, even not necessarily on that specific proposal, but on the general use and some of the issues that may arise from that, or even the good things that would come of it. And then as far as performing inspections, my background in that is, I guess, primarily, started with feedlots at the county. We do commit to performing a minimum number of inspections of feedlot facilities every year. And so then there's the actual on-site portion of that, and then paperwork to follow up and document that that took place. This also happens for building permits. Generally, there's on-site done before you issue a building permit. Same thing with septics. You are on-site to do the soils work, you do the permit review, and then you're there to inspect the actual final product as it's going into the ground. I've done inspections in my previous positions as of facilities. We come in on the weekends to make sure that equipment is running correctly. We didn't just do a general inspection to make sure that our fish were healthy, and everything appeared, and did some water quality monitoring to make sure that everything was seemed to be flowing smoothly there. And so inspections has been a major part of, I guess, everything that I've done.
Thank you very much. It's very in-depth. Thank you.
Question number 2, in your opinion, what is the role of Houston County Environmental Services Director?
So the Environmental Services Office has two components, which is the solid waste recycling side and then the planning and zoning. In smaller counties, we don't have the luxury of just having a director that does the long-term planning of the department, and just has these oversight roles. You're actually a working director. You're out doing inspections if need be, and filling in that role if you're if you're understaffed, or they just need assistance. You're also helping to facilitate public hearings and do a lot of the review for those permit applications, and getting them through the whole process, which ends with you guys generally, or the Board of Adjustment. You're managing, like I stated before, the solid waste, or all the state grant programs that we receive money for: wetlands, shorelands, floodplain, feedlot, septics. You're ensuring that either you or your staff are going to meet all of the standards that we've committed to the state that we will meet.
Go ahead.
Describe your management style, including the interpersonal skills you believe are beneficial for a person in the environmental services position.
So one thing our office has that has actually allowed us to maintain continuity of operations well is that there's a lot of institutional knowledge there. And so my management style is definitely not micromanaging anything because we have people there that know what needs to be done and make sure that that does get done. I think it's, as far as interpersonal skills, I think it's valuable to have somebody that can prioritize tasks well and manage time and also have the emotional intelligence to know how to deal with all different personality styles and different situations that may arise, not only with, and not necessarily with staff, but with the public, because you do deal a lot with the public through all the permitting process.
Can I just do a follow-up? So what is your skill, what do you think is your skill as for your management style?
I think I'm very organized, and I do know what needs to happen and when, but I trust that the people that we've hired to put in place to do those jobs know what they're doing, and I give them the ability to do that without having somebody hovering over them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm not sure what the overarching term would be for that.
Yep. The micromanaging part, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, the opposite of micromanaging,
Yep.
yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Number 4, the Environmental Services Department operates in a complex legal environment. How might you go about leading a team that is responsive to the public and compliance standards?
Yeah, so generally, one of the things that I've done when we do have new staff start is provide them with our data practices, the specific land use statutes, and also tell them, when in doubt, you're better off, just send them to me before you start answering a number of things that maybe we weren't supposed to. And so whenever there is training available, I guess I like to put that or make that available for people so that they do have a good understanding of what our data practices statutes cover, and then what information we are available or are able to give out. And I think just helping them to understand up front what that public information is, which a lot of permit applications are public information or will be at some point. Getting them to understand that up front is the best situation. Generally with complaint situations are probably where there's the most gray area, and that is something that my personal preference is to keep that, somebody else may field the complaint, but that and if I'm not the one to do that, or generally I like to be the one to do that and then keep all the follow-up as well. There isn't a lot.
Are we okay? Number 5, conflict or differences of opinion are inevitable. Please tell us about time and when you and a colleague or a member of the public had differing opinions and possibly even different objectives. As how to approach and solve the problem, how did you create and share purpose and keep the other person engaged and motivated to overcome the gridlock and succeed?
So you're always going to have differences of opinion when you have teams. And that's part of also the positive part of having teams is you get these, everyone has different backgrounds and you hopefully aren't looking at something from a narrow scope then when you do have everybody involved. It does create issues then sometimes when there is such polarization that it's hard to find a common ground. And then sometimes it's even just the matter of what, especially when you bring in new leadership, what they're doing isn't necessarily wrong because it's different. It's just the way they prefer to approach the problem. And so it's hard to, as far as creating a shared purpose, I think it's always good to explain to people why we do things the way we do, whether there's some legal basis behind it from statute or rule, and educating them on, what may be the positive and negatives and how we approach a specific situation one way or another. And then kind of discussing where we both want to go and trying to find that middle ground.
Thank you.
Could you give an example of a situation, of a scenario that, that happened in the past or?
Don't need names, but just general.
I guess not specifically. So in terms of our office, having done kind of all the roles on the zoning side, I understand what's driving both sides as far as whether it's timelines and the work that needs to be done, or where there's constraints that maybe the other side doesn't see because it's not a job that they do. And so being I have the background and kind of knowing what goes on both sides of it, it's allowed me to maybe make the point to the other one that you need to get this report done a little quicker because this person has to not only, it doesn't just go in the mail, it has to get put together and documented here, or there's a few more steps along the way that you're not maybe taking into account. And ultimately, this is our drop dead deadline, but that's for this person to do a bunch of other work up front that you maybe didn't realize. Okay. Is that helpful?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, all books with. Number 6, in general, why is it important to build strong work relationships with external agencies? And give some examples if you have.
Well, for us, the external agencies are very helpful because they are technical experts. I work very closely with the DNR on floodplain and shoreland rules. She deals with that every day essentially, and depending upon the time of year, I do too. But I don't, there's, you know, every year I pick up something more, or I learn something more as I work through different situations. But it's good to, I mean, you need them to help you administer a program. The same thing works for, I guess our big external agencies are state agencies, so that's why I'm gonna reference them. The MPCA is our overarching agency for septics and feedlots. And so there's oftentimes situations that you run across that you just haven't dealt with before. And so it's good to run things by them and get their opinions on statute, or, you know, there's oftentimes statute that you maybe don't realize that's out there that goes beyond just the initial rule that you're actually administering in that, at that point in time. And so it's good to keep a good working relationship with them, because we do rely on them for guidance on a number of things. And I guess the same works for MDA is another one that I've worked closely with. They help administer, with the Ag Inspector program, we do noxious weed education, or the goal is to do that anyway. And, but they're actually ones, they're down here quite a bit. They're, when you get complaint situations, or when we have, that are bigger projects, they're ones that actually come in and do some of the work. And so it's good to know who to go to for answers, or who even just to go to for, to figure out where to go beyond there. And sometimes their rules supersede what we actually have in place, or they have a little more power to do things. We would.
Number 7, provide a brief example of when you made an unpopular decision and were able to implement it knowing it was the right thing to do, and what was the takeaway from that experience?
Well,
You've never made it.
I was gonna say that's like every zoning decision, right? I guess one that, one that sticks out is that problem is there's just so many, I don't know which one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it must be.
Which one are you gonna pick?
I
I'll tell you a couple.
yeah. So we do have one right now, that they had made a CUP application, and my recommendation to them up front, so part of this application was that there are two approvals that they'll need. They need a state approval and a county approval. And there's nothing necessarily that says they have to do one before the other. Although one would be more, or it'd be helpful to have some answers on the one before we move on to the other one. And I guess I made the decision, I think for the CUP purposes, I felt that they made a complete application for us to move forward. And we also, being it was a complete application, we have the 60-day rule to contend with, and I didn't want to risk violating that. And I consulted our county attorney on that as well. And so we moved forward. But from the public perspective, it felt like it was being rushed because they were not aware. And that happens oftentimes with public hearings because there is only a 10-day notice. And so it's just the unfortunate, the way the procedure is. And so they felt that things were being rushed, and that they weren't necessarily ready to move forward. And I guess, again, I don't know that there is, with our current rules in place, I don't know that there is a perfect way to go about doing that. Unless we establish in our ordinances that they do get certain permits up front. The problem is that they also have a right to know that they're going to, they may see the county as the more limiting agency. And so if they want to approach that first, I guess that's anybody's right to have their application heard. And so we did move forward with that. And I guess that just leads to another point too, in that sometimes when people bring applications in, I've been honest with them up front in that this would be recommended for denial because you're not meeting the standards of the ordinance, but it is still their right to have their applications go in front of a board. And so if they want to pay for it and then go and make their case and have the planning commission or the board of adjustment hear that and tell them no, that is their right. So it's not that I like to be honest with them up front, and that would be my recommendation, so they have that education before they get to that point. But that is one I think that maybe we've disagreed with on how to handle in the past. So.
Just to follow up on that, is there a decision that you made within your department that was possibly unpopular, but you felt it was the right thing to do? Is a situation like that ever arose, or? If not, that's fine.
I guess I can't think of anything right offhand, no.
All right.
Please describe a challenging initiative that you led or participated in that demonstrates your analytical and professional competency.
Well, does the fact that you've asked me to undertake the interim director position twice count for that? I guess this is not that I didn't have to do that, but I wanted the opportunity to show that I do have the ability to handle a lot of the programs that we administer, and I also have a good relationship with the colleagues, with my colleagues in the office.
So what you're saying is the fact that you have filled this position as an interim basis on a couple of occasions, that demonstrates your competency for the role.
Yes.
Okay.
Our office is still functioning. We have, the first time around was a little rough. There were some programs that I hadn't dealt with. This time around, there were things I hadn't worked closely on, or programs that I hadn't worked closely with in a couple years. But we've maintained continuity of operations throughout these 2 months where we haven't had a permanent director. And with the worst, I guess, the worst thing probably being that it just takes a long time to get tasks done because there are a number of tasks to do.
All right, number 9, describe what you believe are the significant challenge or challenges facing the Environmental Service Office over the next 5 years, and what are your thoughts regarding strategies or approaches for addressing these challenges?
We need to do some succession planning. When when we went through this 3 years ago and our director started, one of the first things I told him was that this can't happen again. And here we sit 3 years later, kind of in the same boat. And I know you can't always control when people move on for new challenges or new positions, but there are certain points at which we can, or things that we can anticipate, and that's what we need to be looking at for the next 5 years. And as far as strategies and approaches for this, I've tried to, I've kind of sat in on some courses that AMC has offered on the best way to go about doing this, but I haven't actually had a chance to implement anything. But I guess just learning exactly the solid waste and recycling side is the one side that I don't have as detailed of knowledge with. And so learning exactly what everybody does. And the bigger thing is more like the why behind it. I still call Rick once in a while to ask him how he came, or where this number came from, or how did you actually decide to go about it this way. And
For historical reference.
yeah, there's that side of it that's not necessarily written down. And the guys in the recycling center, they do know a lot of that, but that's the stuff that we need to memorialize so that we can understand why some of these things were put in place as we move forward.
We're kind of documenting a succession plan as people retire or things change or whatever. Okay, thank you.
So was that, when you brought that to the attention of former, was that discussed? Was there any work done on that or from your end or?
It was the fact that we just never got, the workload was so heavy that we never got a chance to get there. And then I think as people moved on sooner than what was anticipated. And so that part you can't always plan for. But like I said, there are certain instances in which we know some of it's coming. And so that's where I think that's gonna be very important for this office in the 5-year plan.
Okay, this is your last question, number 10. If you were to be offered this position, what would you expect to accomplish in your first 6 to 12 months of the job? What might you accomplish after the first initial year?
As far as the first 6 to 12 months, it would just be nice to fill, which we thank you for doing that today, to fill a couple of our vacant positions so that we can start building a solid base again. We were pretty fortunate that we had stable leadership for a long time in this office, which allowed for consistency in decision-making. And I guess I'm thinking more along like the administering zoning ordinances, because there is a certain degree of interpretation on that. And so it'd be nice to get a team established again that we can retain and have that consistency for decision-making in the future. There is a backlog of work to do, So as far as just 6 to 12 months, it would be, like I said, getting staff in, getting them trained, and getting caught up on that backlog would be an accomplishment. As far as after the initial year, I know that there are some ordinances that people would like us to look at, and hopefully we can be to a point there where we can start doing some of the research and looking into some of those different areas, or even just prioritizing what those areas are, and maybe making some forward motion in some of those.
So the first 6 to 12 months is gonna be just to get your office in,
Training and kind
training
of up to
and
speed.
up to speed on, for the new hire and. Anybody have any follow-up questions? Do you have any questions for us?
So obviously, we've had a fair amount of turnover in this position in just the last 3 years. I guess what do you guys see, or what do you think you need to see in a director that would make them successful at this position and be able to maintain that for long term?
So I'd say knowledge of the position and the fact of your knowledge of your ordinances and your permitting is probably your most important. I get the maintaining of the staff. There's, this day and age, there's always gonna be a turnover of staff. It's kinda hard to control. I get that too, but consistency stays at the top as far as doing the permitting, the reviewing contracts for solid waste, whatever. And to hire quality people when you have an opening to do the work that you need to have done. And if you do those things, I think you'd have the support of the board and everyone in the county here. I probably didn't explain that very well either, but.
Well, you just heard me ramble, so.
That gives us some, yeah.
No, you did.
Anybody else wanna answer that or add on to that? Any other questions?
No.
So the next question, I'm sure you'd be available to work at any time, right? 2 weeks for. And the background check, you got all that, so. So if anybody doesn't have anything else, this concludes the interview. Thank you, Amelia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
go back to this.
Cam? So on the bottom of this questionnaire, on that number 3, the last page, number 3, it says ability to express. Then underneath it says ES Director 2024-1015 EEO.
That's a date.
That's just a page number. It doesn't have anything to, okay. Just making sure I understood.
That's not a score that isn't, okay.
I'll try and put this in the right order.
We gotta go close doors now for the negotiation?
Yeah.
Want to do the court updates?
Oh, and maybe we should, huh? Yep.
Now, do we turn these into you or to Ann? To you, okay.
Administrator updates. Do you have anything, Carol? You must come forward. So we can hear you.
I guess updates has just been working on, all of this stuff and, trying to get a personnel policy done and looking at environmental services director, her staff. Oh, there was something else that popped in, but it popped out right just as fast.
I don't really have a whole lot to bring. Had any meetings this past week, been busy in the field, so, I've been trying to review that personnel policy too, and that always puts me to sleep right at the end of the day, so.
Imagine that.
I gotta mark where I left off.
We don't start reading it at 9 o'clock at night.
So I don't really have a whole lot to bring. Dewey, what do you got?
I had a couple of Zoom meetings last week. Thursday, 8 o'clock, I had with the Southeastern EMS, talking about different issues going on. There's talking about getting, only in discussion at this time, protective vests for the first responders because of things happening in the metro area with the people in Burnsville. So there's discussion only at this time to bring forward a request on that. Looking at a few other little things, they're gonna have, up in St. Mary's, they're doing, they're able to alert the medical center from the crash site, and so that the doctor can actually see pictures of the vehicles involved, so they get an idea of what type of trauma they're gonna be seeing when the patient gets there. It sounded kind of Dick Tracy type of thing, but I guess they're trying it out. Position of the person in the vehicle and all that kind of stuff. Those are kind of the highlights. A lot of other year-end finance stuff and so on, that's not important to us, but those are the two highlights at that meeting. And then later that morning at 10, I had a Zoom with Workforce, and their big thing was, again, the end of the year policies and the financial part. Interesting thing is that their insurance increases for the employees in the workforce group up there. There's no increase due to being self-insured. So however that worked, it was interesting to hear that. But other than that, that's just the usual stuff that happens at the end of the year when they're showing finances and so on. That's it.
Commissioner Burns.
Oh, had Hiawatha Valley Mental Health, they're opening a new office in Wabasha to expand their capacity as far as ability to serve people and have more space. They did have a 25% increase in their insurance as far as insurance for their staff. Had a SEMCAC meeting in Chatfield last night, and like Dewey said, that dealt a lot with finance as far as end of the year on the budget, where they stand, what the budget for next year is gonna be. Sounds like they're gonna be asking counties for some additional funding to help with the bus situation as far as maintaining busing services. That'll be a question to look at once they come around to the county asking for the funding in the future. So that'll be up to you guys. Two questions I've got. One is the district meeting that's coming up in Owatonna. Was anybody wanting to go? I am going, if anybody wants to ride along. It's a meeting that starts at 8:15, so I'd be leaving Caledonia about 5:30, 5:45 to get there, if anybody wanted to come along. And then the other question is, this is all new configuration as far as our speakers and everything that we've got, but we have no more Zoom. Any issue from anybody as far as, you know, the general public having to be here rather than watch on Zoom? So it's an issue as far as the public is concerned to watch the meetings, having to be here in person rather than watch on Zoom.
Well, they'll still be able to watch the recordings.
They can watch the recording, but they can't.
You can't watch it live, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Public comments at the end, just a minute.
It won't be long.
I think, I can talk loud enough.
No.
I think we could probably, see how it goes for like, say, 3 meetings, 4 meetings. If we really hear a lot of, or get a lot of negative feedback, we'd look into what it would cost to get that going again.
We really didn't have a lot of people from the public on our Zooms as of late. I mean, it was mostly internal staff that were listening.
Right.
So, I mean,
Well, just a question I was asking. That's all I got.
Okay, Commissioner Schultz?
Oh, the only thing we had is we had our land use. I think we kind of touched on that at our workshop.
Yeah, you want to give a little update on that?
Wasn't a lot that jumped out. Second to pull it.
That was last Tuesday before our workshop.
Basically, the highway department talked a little bit about the land acquisition, et cetera.
For the new bridge, yep.
Yeah,
That was,
Not on down at County 10.
yep, that got completed.
that's completed. Coroner's office still working on a lot of sales. Zoning had some updates, the Wilmington situation over there. We got some of the FEMA money coming. They had some issues down there with some late season tenants, I guess you could call them, campers that were hunting. They brought up about some bathroom problems that they're gonna be trying to address or new policies. That was kind of the highlights that I had down here, so.
Yeah, I think Brian said that they're getting like $6,000 of FEMA funding to,
FEMA
Repairs.
reimbursement, and that should help take care of the wood pile at the end.
Yep.
Some other cleanup of debris, so.
yep.
That was kind of the highlight of it.
All right, thanks, Bob. Greg?
That is union negotiations, and I can't talk about them, so I guess that's all I got.
All right. Closing public comment. Come forward, state your name and where you're from.
Michael Silling, Wilmington Township. I guess my comment on that Zoom meeting would be, we probably don't need it if we could get the put the recorded message on the website sooner than it has been in the
Yep.
past. I guess that's my feeling on that.
Yep, that's been brought up before, tried to get, those up on
Because sometimes it could, I mean, for in the past, it's been a month sometimes, and
Yep, yep.
we're long past business, so.
right,
So.
yep. Okay,
Get out
Thank you.
sooner.
thank you. All right, is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign, we are now in closed session. Bob made a motion to come out of closed session, I believe, right? Or Greg?
Greg made it, Bob.
Seconded.
Greg made the motion at 12:07, and
Bob
Bob Schultz seconded. Carol?
All right, the board met in closed session to discuss labor negotiations as per Minnesota statute 13D.03. We discussed negotiation strategies, developments, or discussions and review of labor proposals conducted pursuant to section 179.8.01 to 179.8.25. The board will we'll vote on to ratify or not a tentative agreement with LELS Local 415.
415.
Lieutenant Union.
Lieutenant.
Is there a motion to ratify the tentative agreement with Lieutenant 415 Union?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
We do roll call?
We'll do roll call.
District 1,
No.
District 2, District 3,
No.
District 4,
No.
District 5.
No.
So we will start over with the negotiations.
I'll notify by them. And I will also notify the other.
Okay. All right. Anything else that needs to come before the meeting? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So.
Whoa. What do you want to do, a second there?
Sure. I can second it.
Competition is fierce.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.